Hello, this is Greg Allison from Galactic Greg's coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in the Milky Way galaxy. And I'm really excited about the rapid development of SpaceX's Starship program. And the fact that they have two prototypes in development is just off the charts. They're competing against themselves because they're their own biggest competition, so it seems. Although I'm sure Jeff Bezos might want to argue with that, but a lot of people are saying, nah, he's not even in the game. Of course, he's being quiet. Maybe he is in the game, but that's another story. So let's get back to SpaceX and the Starship program. It's going to be a very big game changer if the Starship program works as Elon envisions it. And I really hope it does, because we really need that in the world of space development to develop the dreams that we want. That would be so powerful. Now, that said, if it doesn't quite go as Elon envisions, it could be a real problem. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to bring some things to your attention. And when Elon showed up there in Boca Chica, Texas, wearing his T-shirt that said Nuke Mars, maybe it should have said Nuke Boca Chica. Now, no, I know he don't want to do that. And I know that he wants to terraform Mars, and it's a very proactive thing in that regard. Although I don't think nuking Mars is probably the best way to go about his real goals. That said, it's another story. But Boca Chica, Greg, what are you talking about? That's crazy talk. Well, not exactly. Let me explain this. There's something in the world of rocketry called quantity distance, or in the world of explosives. And a rocket is a really big explosive. As a matter of fact, it was deemed that the Saturn V rocket, if it exploded at the launch complex, would have went off like a small atom bomb. And I'm not kidding. That would have been very catastrophic. Fortunately, we never had an accident like that with those programs, with the Saturn V vehicle or a space shuttle at the launch pads at the Kennedy Space Center. Although there have been accidents at launch pads before. And these are things that could happen, and we have to think about this quantity distance again. What is quantity distance, Greg? Quantity distance is there's tables for this. Look up tables and equations, and it gets very complicated. But it has to do with the type of explosive used, the energy they possess, and the amount of it. And so, really, what quantity distance boils down to is how far can debris be thrown from an explosion. And what you're going to see and hear about that is going to be a little bit frightful when it comes to these really large, heavy boosters. As I mentioned, the Saturn V was deemed to be essentially a small atom bomb. And as you may be aware, the viewing area at the Kennedy Space Center was 3 miles away from Launch Complex 39A, which was the closest launch complex to the viewing area. It's about 7 miles over to 39B, where SpaceX is setting up now. But in Boca Chica, things aren't so far. In fact, there's resonances about 2 miles from the launch complex. And SpaceX, fortunately, is trying their best to buy the Boca Chicans that live in that area out. And in fact, they're offering them 3 times the market value for those homes. Hey, Boca Chicans, take the money and run. And yeah, not only is it a good deal, but you'll wish you had once you hear what I've got to tell you. This is important. You need to go to save your life, or at least the risk of it. And let me tell you, you don't want to be that close to that launch complex, because it's not, it might be fun to watch a launch, but it is going to be grueling, because the acoustic pressure and the sound level at 2 miles from these boosters is going to tear your house up and be rough on your ears, among other things, if everything works well. Now, having said that, quantity distance, let's go back to that. 3 miles is how far we were from the viewing area to 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. Okay, Greg, so 3 miles is good. No, not necessarily, for several reasons. Let's just assume that all goes well and there's never a mishap at the pad. Let's start with there. Let's start with good news. I live in North Alabama. I work as a contractor at the Marshall Space Flight Center. I do not speak for my contractor, the Marshall Space Flight Center, or NASA in any shape, form, or fashion. I'm on here speaking for Greg Allison and Galactic Gregs. Now, having said that, in the 1960s, they were testing the S1C stage of the Saturn V, the most powerful stage rocket ever tested so far, until very shortly from now, when the Starship and the Super Heavy booster will be tested. The Super Heavy booster has 35 Raptor engines on it. Ooh. Now, all that said, say it all works well. In Huntsville, Alabama, when they were testing the S1C first stage of the Saturn V, that was producing over 7 million pounds, 7.5 million pounds of thrust. Actually, it was about 700 and once they got it pegged out, it started out about 7 million pounds, and it pegged out on the order of 7,891,000 pounds of thrust. Now, when I was a kid, I heard those engines firing where I lived 70 miles away. I could hear that rumble. I thought it was great because I knew that was the sound that was taking us to the moon. We hadn't got there yet, but I heard those engines firing, and I was thrilled. I was excited. Now, the people that live closer in Huntsville, Alabama, some, 7 miles or further away, some of them weren't so excited because their windows were broke. They had cracked walls and cracked foundations from that test. The acoustic pressure of that test was cost NASA some money. NASA had to spend a lot of money fixing homes in the Huntsville, Alabama area. And that's why they opened the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. And the Stennis Space Center has an area around it in which buildings are required to not be totally enclosed. They have certain requirements if you're going to build a building, so the acoustic pressure doesn't build up and do those kind of damages. And there's a fair bit of distance there. And that's just for testing a stage. Now, when you get a whole vehicle stacked up, you've got, if you have an explosion, it's not just one stage, it's potentially everything in the vehicle. Maybe go off in a series of explosions instead of one single explosion, possibly. But we're still talking an atom bomb type explosion. Now, Greg, SpaceX is going to be safe. We know Elon's trying to do this. Well, I think about it. SpaceX has had a lot of great successes. They've proven capabilities that blows my mind, landing a booster like a little stick on top of the heaving barge, when you know that the thrust vector control system on the bottom of the booster is like balancing it with your finger down here. Do that. And then land it on the heaving deck of a barge. That's amazing. I'm awestruck that they could do that. However, like I said, they had some accidents, and that's part of rocket development. And one of the things you've got to recall about rocketry, and I've mentioned this in other videos, is Allison's laws of rockets. And Allison's laws of rockets are as follows. I came up with this 20 years ago. I figured Norman Augustine could have laws. I could too, because I was developing hybrid rockets, much from altitude balloons. And law 1, rockets go boom. Law 2, rockets have always gone boom. And law 3, that will help there. Law 3 is rockets always will go boom. And the job I got today is to make them go boom less often, but law 3 will always be there in the world of rockets because rockets have so much energy involved in them. Going to space on a rocket is riding up on a controlled explosion and coming back like a meteor. That is not the safest thing you could possibly engage in. It will never be as safe as airplane travel, no matter how good you are at it, as long as you're using rockets. There may be other ways, but you still got to put a lot of energy in your body to get to orbital velocity. That said, quantity distance, atom bomb. Okay, so the Saturn V was a big launch vehicle. Well, guess what? The Saturn V had a total weight of 6,540,000 pounds, of which 5,998,900 pounds was fuel. So almost 6 million pounds of that 6.5 million pounds was fuel. Now, you can find this data on Starship, but Starship and the Super Heavy There are vehicles that are still changing and being tweaked by SpaceX. And that's cool. It's amazing how they can change these things on the fly. If you go to, say, Wikipedia and try to look up the fuel contained in the Super Heavy, you're not going to find a number for that. You get some gross total weight. The gross total weight of the entire BFR, Starship, and Super Heavy together are on the order of 11 million pounds. That's almost twice as much as a Saturn V. So guess what? You are going to have more energy, more fuel, and 3 miles may not be safe enough. Consider this. The Soviet Union was developing their competition to our Saturn V. It was called their N-1 rocket. And their N-1 rocket had a lot of stability problems because it had 30 engines on it. Well, we've seen that SpaceX is really good at controlling things, but they are flying 35 engines. And I'm kind of digressing here. I'll come back to this point in a minute. The point I'm trying to make at this moment is that on the 3rd of July of 1969, the second launch attempt of the N-1 rocket, which was called the L3, that was the serial number for it, the L3, exploded just coming off the pad. It threw debris 6 miles. 6 miles. And it was about the same order of a vehicle capability as the Saturn V. It threw debris 6 miles. That's not saying everything within 6 miles was destroyed. I'm just telling you that's how far debris got flung. And you don't want to be getting hit by any kind of debris from a rocket in that fashion. Now, it don't mean that everything in 6 miles got hit, no. But that is an indicator of where you should not be, where you wouldn't want to be living, where you wouldn't want your kids and family in an event like that. Now, okay, 3 miles is what they do at Kennedy Space Center. You got to consider something. The way we do safety in these organizations, we don't consider what's on base to be as high priority as what's off base. I mean, you don't want to destroy any of your infrastructure. You don't want to destroy your vehicle, your crew, your ground crew, or any of your infrastructure, your own facilities, but destroying civilian facilities outside is even higher priority. You really don't want to do that. I mean, you don't want to do anything. And you try everything you can to mitigate and stop any of these risks, but it is considered a higher risk once you get outside the center. So maybe, you still got to have a viewing area somewhere. You want to have it. The probability of getting hit at the viewing area wasn't so big for a Saturn V class vehicle, but it was existent. It wasn't non-existent. Fortunately, we did not have that problem in the history of the Saturn Apollo program or in the history of the shuttle program. And hopefully we will not see that in the entire history and flight profile of the SpaceX family of vehicles, of their various starships, heavy boosters, BFRs, whatever they want to call them. They got a version 2 coming up. It's considerably larger than the one that they're developing right now. And we're talking something that's got 60, almost 59 foot in diameter. That's crazy big rocket. You can start stacking houses up in there. Well, it's also a lot of fuel. And I would hope that would be launched offshore somewhere in an offshore platform. And I did do a video, Mr. Musk moved to Alabama for your development and launch stuff out in the Gulf. And I did pioneer some Gulf launching. See my video on that. You can see that I was out in the Gulf of Mexico with these balloons and rockets and various things 20 years ago. And so all that said, Greg, what are your word? What is it here? Think about this. We have twice as much fuel in a BFR. We have 35 engines. Why 35 engines? What does that matter? What does that mean? Well, reliability is inversely proportional to parts count. The more parts you got, the more probability you have a failure. Any one of those engines failing could detonate other engines, or in a case like the Russian-Soviet N-1, when they had engines shut down, they had acoustic pressures and hydraulic pressures building up in pogo and things like that in their system. Now, I assume SpaceX, with its superb control systems, has got the algorithms to control that. But still, the parts count is still there. They have a lot of engines on that booster. And Allison's laws of rockets will always exist. So there is an existent risk of a bad time, a bad day. And that's what I'm telling you. If you're in Boca Chica and you live 2 miles from the launch complex and somebody's offering you 3 times the market value for your home, take the deal and run. If you want to watch the launch, then hey, well, I think he's giving you special deals for watching launches, but you know, back off a few miles and put up a tower and watching the tower. You can get so much money, you can afford to build a really nice big home. Why stay there? Why take the risk? I'm hearing some people don't want to sell. So, because they're probably going to invoke eminent domain if you don't take the deal, and you probably won't get as much money if they do that. I don't know. You know, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take this as legal advice. Just take it as safety advice. I do work safety. I'm going to tell you, if you're within 2 miles of that launch complex, you don't want to be there. Even if everything goes well and there's never a problem, which I hope is the case, you do stand risk of windows shattering, walls cracking, foundations cracking, ear damage, and you're going to put your kids in that environment? No. Take the deal and run. SpaceX is smart to try to offer to buy those places, and I would expect eminent domain to be invoked because the county in the area does stand to profit and gain a lot from the business that SpaceX is bringing there. But if one of these things goes off on the pad, it would indeed be like nuking that area. God forbid, or whoever you pray to, let's hope that never occurs. And I honestly wish and hope the best success for their program, because it is exciting. As I started out this program with this video, I said it is exciting, and it is. It's also frightening and exciting. You know, these two things can go hand in hand. It's not without its risk. It's not without its peril. And I do give kudos to SpaceX for having the willingness to take that kind of risk and to stick their neck out to try to do something bold and adventurous. This is something a lot of big companies would never do. And if something were to happen to Elon, I don't know that SpaceX would continue that, because he's the man with the spirit driving it. Glenn Shotwell is probably in the same category, but you know, once the corporate bean counters take over, forget it. You know, it would just be another big money sucking organization trying to milk the government and whoever else they could, probably. Although with a better deal, since they started out with a better foundation than some of the other big companies. But you got to consider, they are building this rocket outdoors. So, you know, there's just some odd things and some odd feel about when I look and see what they're doing. It's like, you know, how clean's that lock system? Like I said in the previous video, I'm sure, you know, since SpaceX has dealt with locks a lot, they know how to do it and keep it clean. But holy smoke. I see guys out there with cutting, you know, the little cutters cutting on that thing and cutting it up. You know, it's like, wow. Okay. But hey, it is an MK1. It is a prototype. They do have an MK2, and they're trying to accelerate this schedule. They brought guys from MK2 side to work on the MK1, apparently, to accelerate that. So let's hope it all succeeds, and let's hope that Boca Chica will be a nice, fun place for a millennium to come, and there's no problems. However, just bear in mind, if you live within 2 miles and you're offered the deal 3 times the market value, go. Now, in celebration and recognition of the SpaceX launch, I've got my own little BFR here. See my Starship with fins and all that, and it's got the super heavy, and I'm going to launch it right here and now. So this will be the first, yeah, so I'm really enthusiastic. So this is going to be the first live launch on a YouTube video of a Starship. Here we go. Blast off. Now you've seen it, and it did go yon way. But my house didn't blow up. So yeah, the quantity distance was governed by air in this system. So there you have it. We just launched the Starship at Galactic Greg's, and it's reusable, my friends. And since it is reusable, we get to launch again. And let's hope these guys with the real Starship get to have as much fun as I'm having, and everything is successful. But I gotta say, do be careful. And if you're in any area where rocket launch is going on, be aware that there's risk involved. And it's one thing to be in the viewing area, but it's nothing to have your home, your family, and your whole life tied up 2 miles from launch complex of a rocket with almost twice as much fuel as a Saturn V. And they're going to develop one that's a lot bigger. Get out of there. Go now. Take the deal. Take the money and run. And that's the advice from Galactic Gregs. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I've got many more videos coming up, and several I've already done. Check out the videos I've got. Sometimes you have to go into YouTube and just click on the little section that says videos to see them all, because they don't all show up. I'm going to try to restructure my page where more of them show up on this page. But you know, I like to have some fun on here. I mean, I cover serious topics, and then you gotta have a little fun too. Why take everything so serious? Or I could be Scott Manley. He's good. I like Scott. Very informative, very in-depth videos for that gentleman. So he's one of my favorite channels. That said, please, I hope you like this channel. Hope you like my video. To see the more videos I'll be coming with, please click the subscribe button and then the update notification bell. That's how you get the updates. And I've got a lot of space topics to cover. I work space. I've been a space advocate all my life, practically. Since I started my first chapter of the L5 Society when I was a teenager. And I started my second chapter when I was a teenager. I was 21 when we started Huntsville, Alabama, 23 when we started Huntsville, Alabama L5 Society. So I've started chapters in North Carolina and Alaska and Alabama. Got some of these ALA states, right? But anyway, so a lot more good stuff coming up, because I've got a lot to cover, a lot to share, and it's going to be fun. And with that, I say thank you for watching.